Hi, I'm Manny Fitzsimmons. I'm your Washington REALTORS Legal Hotline lawyer. Today we're going to talk about broker-to-broker relationships and how you can exercise greater professionalism in your dealings with other brokers. Foremost, assume that the broker with whom you're dealing is also a professional. Don't, out of the gate, treat them like they're your enemy, like they're your adversary, like they want something other than what you want, which is the best outcome possible for the consumers. Now, certainly, every broker in every transaction represents their own client and works toward the best interests of their client, but that still doesn't make you adversaries in the transaction. Display courtesy to one another. When another broker gives you reason to put up your guard, put up your guard. Be careful, but still act with professionalism. Return phone calls. Act courteously. Display compassion in communicating difficult information. Display kindness in your responses. Treat the broker on the other side of the transaction the way that you would want them to treat you. I know you're in a hurry often. Try not to be so short with your answers that it makes the other person feel like they just got brushed off. Understand that that broker on the other side of the transaction is accountable to their own client, to a consumer who has questions. Understand that some brokers in the industry are newer than others. Some have different experiences than others. You may know everything there is to know about new construction, and the broker on the other side of the transaction may know nothing about new construction. You might have to explain something to them that to you seems mundane or routine. Exercise courtesy, exercise professionalism, be nice. Let's talk about a few specific issues. Buyer brokers, when you pull up to a house to show your buyer and you can tell that there's another buyer broker already inside the house showing the house, give them a minute to finish their showing. Don't go in the house and show your buyer while another buyer's already in there looking with their broker. And if that situation simply cannot be avoided and you have to enter the home while another buyer and their broker are in there, then respect the fact that that buyer and that broker were in there first and are viewing the property. Show your buyer in a way that's not intrusive to the showing that they're already engaged in. Buyer brokers who are in the home already and another buyer and buyer broker come in, I know that feels intrusive, and I know that you wish that they wouldn't have done that. But here it is, it's already happened. How are you going to treat that other broker? What is the other broker's client going to think about you based on the way that you do treat that other broker? Remember, real estate is a small world. The way you treat people is going to be communicated within the community. Oftentimes, situations present themselves that are less than desirable, and certainly having two buyers and buyer brokers in the same house at the same time is one of those situations. Avoid it if you can, and if you can't, then handle it professionally. Listing brokers. You sign a listing agreement with the seller in which you promise to make an ongoing, continuous, and good faith effort to sell their home. Does that mean that you might sometime have to go out of your way to assist the buyer client of another broker and still collect only the listing side of the commission? Yes, it means that. You promised seller that you would make an ongoing, good faith, continuous effort to sell their home. So if that means that you have to be courteous, even use some of your time from time to time to make sure that seller's home is sold to a buyer represented by another broker, then you do that. And you do it graciously. Buyer brokers, you do not, however, ever send your buyers out of your community, out of your county, to another community or county and assume that the listing broker or a site agent or some poor broker who gets stuck showing your client houses because they have no idea that this buyer is actually represented by a broker in another county is going to show your buyer a house. if your buyer wants to buy a property in a community that you don't work, then you make a contact with a broker in that community, you refer your buyer, you set up a referral agreement, and you take a referral fee. But don't assume that some broker in another county or community is going to show your buyer, and then you're going to write the agreement and collect the compensation for it. Remember, brokers, in the transaction, you are the logic-based, fact-driven, outcome-oriented professional who is not supposed to be making decisions or reacting based on emotion. There is plenty of that happening with our clients. You don't have the liberty to bring your own emotions into a transaction. Think back on the transactions you have experienced that have gone south before they got to closing, where buyer and seller are just at each other and nobody likes anybody, the brokers don't like each other, the clients hate each other. And think about what the triggering event was for that sour tone in this transaction. And it's certainly possible that buyer and seller did something untoward. More likely, one or both brokers ignited discontent among the others. When you're talking to your client and you cast the other broker in a bad light, or you disparage the party on the other side of the transaction, what impact do you think that has on your client? Your client whose foundation in this transaction is based on emotion. What do you think that does to your client? It completely colors their perception of both the broker and the party on the other side of the transaction. And with just a very few callous words, you turn what should be a positive relationship transaction into a very sour transaction. Be guarded with your words. Be guarded with your tone. Cast the other party, cast the other broker in a positive light whenever you can. Certainly, if you need to help your client be guarded in a relationship or in contract negotiations, absolutely you do that. But that doesn't mean that you cast the other party in a negative light. You don't assume ill intent on the other broker and the other party. I hope this makes sense. If you have questions on this topic or any other, please send an email to me, legalhotline@warealtor.org. Thank you for being a Washington REALTORS member.